What are the best Master Duel decks post the new selection pack Ultimate Sparkle? Today, Chat and I will be talking about what do we think are the most powerful decks in the game and why. Let's go ahead and jump on in. What's going on with y'all, big dogs? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that your day phenomenal. But if it isn't, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. There are some new strategies and some new things that you could be playing from the selection pack, Sparkling, Brilliant, Sparkle, whatever it is. And today we're going to be talking all about them, all of the new things that you could be playing, and if they're worth it or not. And we're going to go ahead and start off with the new ABC XYZ cards. Something that I actually built and started playing inside of Master Duel as well as the TCG. The good thing about Master Duel right now is that you can play some cards that are going to be coming out in the TCG very soon. The bad thing about these cards is that unfortunately, while I think they can be good, I don't think that this is a deck that is going to be top tier. The best thing about the ABC strategy is that it can play very well with Fiendsmith, and it can summon some really toxic boards. It can actually easily search floodgates like Anti-Spell Fragrance, but the really bad thing about this deck is that a well-timed hand trap puts you in a really rough spot. Now, if you're a smart player and you play around those interruptions, then 2 hand traps puts you in a really rough spot almost no matter what you do. It's not a deck that I think you would be able to get into Masters as efficiently as some of the other options, but it's still a good deck overall. Branded is almost in the exact same option. I think that Branded is starting to get power crept a little bit. It's no longer a solid option or a Masters level Yu-Gi-Oh strategy, but it's still good enough to win games. Mirror Jade is an all-time threat, and Branded players are starting to use that new Light and Darkness Dragon monster like crazy. So these are strategies that do have some win conditions that may make it strong enough to win games, but I wouldn't count it, excuse me, I wouldn't count on it when you get to higher levels of competition. Next is going to be Melodious. I think Melodious is also, straight off the bat, chat, good enough to steal W's. Melodious has some really good things around it, like playing around hand traps if you play them efficiently, but doesn't have that it factor to be able to win games. A lot of players experimented with Melodious as an engine, and it went okay, but overall, it's not a deck that I think is going to be wowing people for quite some time. Now, Blue Eyes did get some new support, chat, and normally, Blue Eyes would be sitting there with Joey talking about you're a 4th-rate duelist with or a 3rd-rate duelist with a 4th-rate deck. I think Blue Eyes isn't the best deck in the game, but it's incredibly solid. One of the biggest options or the biggest problems with Blue Eyes is that we don't have the Primite cards just yet in Master Duel. And I'm not sure if we're getting them anytime soon. But the good thing about Blue Eyes is that you can play a ton of hand traps. The deck is really good against graveyard reliant decks. It's really good with Bestials, so it's actually good against Fiendsmith. The only problem with this deck is that it just doesn't feel like you have enough targets for Wishes of the Eyes of Blue to get the cards that you need. But overall, the deck is incredibly solid. I think it's a really, really good deck, just probably not one of the best decks available. Same thing that I would say about Unchained. I think ironically, Unchained is probably the biggest winner out of this pack. Unchained is one of the more complicated decks to play, but it's one of those strategies that can just simply play around all of the hand trap BS that your opponent has to offer. Unchained is also one of the only strategies that you can droll yourself on your turn and still be able to full combo, meaning that playing around the Molcharmy cards or Maxi is not really that hard. Also, since Droll and Lockbird is pretty big into the meta, this deck can play around it fairly well. Unchained should probably be played with a, I wouldn't say minimal Unchained engine, but not as a full Unchained deck. To be honest, it's more like an Unchained Fiendsmith Magical Musketeer style Yu-Gi-Oh deck, but it's incredibly good at breaking boards, and because of the new monster Aerial Eater, the deck is super, super consistent. That was the last card that the deck needed to be able to bridge any of the Fiendsmith or the magical musketeer cards into full Unchained combo, no matter the circumstance. I think that the deck is really, really good. Exodia. We've seen Exodia be played quite a bit. And to be honest, chat, I think that you guys are messed up, right? That you guys have taken Kaiba's deck and you've pummeled Exodia, Grandpa's deck, time after time again. It's actually... Exodia is doing good at stun. I'm gonna put it in takes a good pilot. I think that there are better stun options, which is unfortunate because you should never have a better stun option than a deck that's kind of built on stunning. I think one of the best things about Exodia was Secret Village of the Spellcasters, and seeing that that card is banned, it's really hard to be able to perform that. I don't think that Exodia is one of the better formulas to take you to Masters. Yes, Exodia stun exists, but there's other decks that kind of do things better, right? You're kind of like on Dice Roll Simulator / hope that your Millennium Ankh resolves if you're playing Exodia. Gotta steal Grandpa's Blue Eyes and make sure we have them all. The amount of Exodia slander that you guys have sent me literally makes me think that it's here, but it might even be better than Takes a Good Pilot. It might be here, but I'm gonna put it right here. We argue, or someone in the chat argued, that this deck, Goblin Biker, should be in the tier list because more XC decks are prevalent. That's true. More XC decks are prevalent like Galaxy Eyes, but I don't think that that justifies this being a playable deck right now, right? I think that Goblin Biker is best when we get the spell card. I forget what the spell card's called. Goblin Biker's Gone Wild, I think. The spell card that lets you tribute a monster on the field to special summon a Goblin Biker monster. That's when the deck becomes strong, but it's better as an engine. I'm not even gonna lie. It's just a better as an engine for like decks like Memento and stuff like that. And it's only better when XE decks are tier 1. Right now, I wouldn't say any XE decks are tier 1. Now, they hold us out, chat, because Blue Eyes is getting all of the shine. All of the shine. Dark Magician is It's
been a long day without you, my friend. And I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
It reminds me in 2016 when Blue Eyes and Dark Magician both got support. Blue Eyes was a meta deck. It won a world championship. Dark Magician was hoping to be a rogue deck. It's very unfair on how the support is mitigated between these two strategies. I absolutely hate it, but it is what it is. Dark Magician is getting the middle trial cheat. Bro, it's not even getting any hand-me-downs. That's what's like so bad about it. So yeah, Dark Magician is definitely one of the worst decks. Even Red Eyes get some really, really good support in the future, right? Can we get Dark Magician support in the future? Hopefully it fixes all of the Dark Magician problems, similar to how Blue Eyes had all of its problems fixed. I would love that to happen, but we got our fingers crossed and remember what happened to us in 2016. Now, Galaxy Eyes. And you guys may not like my Galaxy Eyes placement. I'm just going to give you guys the heads up right now. I'm going to put it in Takes a Really Good Pilot. I think that Galaxy Eyes gets stronger with the new cards, but it does not solve a lot of Galaxy Eyes' problems. And one of those problems is like, so it's a combo deck that makes big boards, but its big boards are like Galaxy Eyes, Photon Lord, and Hope Harbinger, and Prey. Like, that's not good enough in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, if Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks were fair, Galaxy would be one of the better decks in the game if everything else was faired out like Galaxy Eyes. But unfortunately, I would say if you're playing like more of a Galaxy Eyes build with all of the Galaxy cards, you got to be a really good player, which you probably are, to take this deck very far. Snake Eyes is our first Master Style Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck, and who would have guessed? It's like a year. It's like a year of this deck being the best deck in the game. It's annoying. It's a combo deck that does mid-range boards. That's what I'm saying, Earl. Earl put it right on the head. It is a combo deck that does mid-range boards. It's like, brother, man, you're not enough. Where's Red Dragon Archfiend? In for Freight Duelist. I'm not gonna lie. It's not good enough at all. Red Dragon Archfiend is, I don't even want to dunk on it, but yeah, it's not good. But yeah, Snake Eyes is probably the best deck in Master Duel, hands down. It's incredibly annoying that this deck is still good. It's also really strange that we got Azamina and Fiendsmith to pretty much revive the deck, because everybody knows that Snake Eye was on its way out, and to more generic cards made it really good. Original isn't the problem. If you ban original of Snake Eyes, the whole deck falls apart. So I'm not sure if you can say it isn't the problem, because banning original solves the entire deck, right? Banning Flameburge doesn't really, like, you can still play without Flameburge. Like, you got to remember, original can send cards like Fiendsmith Requiem to the graveyard, which is equipped to an engraver, to produce 2 more bodies. It doesn't even matter that you can't make Flameburge to produce more bodies. It's the fact that you can produce 2 more bodies at the very least, just off original, which is also a target for Hollowed Azamina, which also is a search card. It definitely does a little much, and that would probably be the end of Snake Eyes, like how it is in the TCG, if you banned original, right? But that's just my 2 cents. Chimera. I really want to put Chimera in It Takes a Really Good, or in the 4-Freight Duelist. So the reason why I put it in It Takes a Really Good Pilot is that if I'm going to keep it a bean with you guys, if you are going to play Chimera and you are going to get Fiendsmith cards and you are going to get Azamina cards, just play Snake Eyes. Like that I think you guys can back me up on this one. It's not that the deck's bad, is that you're playing 2 of the best engines in the entire game. And you're kind of like wasting it on Chimera. And this is somebody that absolutely loves Chimera. Absolutely love Chimera. Just play Snake Eyes. Just play Unchained. Just play White Force. Like you are literally wasting your gems, right? And that's why I put it in It Takes a Really Good Pilot, because this deck is harder to play than the other decks and gives you less reward. Like, if you make a mistake with this deck, you feel it. But if you don't make, if you make a mistake with the other decks, it's almost as forgiving. Its power level is solid option, but if you crafted all those cards, I really would tell you just play one of the other decks. You'd have to like really be in love with Yugi Moto to justify playing this, right? Labyrinth, I actually think, excuse me, we're in a great Labyrinth meta. I genuinely think we're in a great Labyrinth meta, guys. Players are playing Droll, Maxi, Charmies. Labyrinth's saying none of that, right? It's actually ridiculous how strong Lab can be. And if players actually started playing the simultaneous equation cannon, you would make a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players very, very, very upset. This deck is primed to be in the best spot that it is. This deck's really, really strong. And I'm not talking about playing Floodgate Lab. Floodgate Lab doesn't get you anywhere. But regular Lab, you're doing it. Welp already wasted gems, and he couldn't be more right. I'm just saying. If you love Chimera and you crafted it and that's what you want to play, it's still a deck good enough to get you to Masters. It's a great deck. But you have a significantly harder road than any other deck that plays Fiendsmith and Azamina. That's all I'm saying. The Magical Musketeer version of the deck. And the Magical Musketeer version is different than the Unchained version. As you have a bigger Magical Musketeer engine, you might play the Magical Musketeer spell and trap cards. I think that this deck takes a really good pilot. So the thing about the Unchained cards is that they're free. Like, they're literally just walking advantage cards. And when you take those out and you put the Magical Musketeer cards, you get a little bit closer to the fair side of the deck, right? Not saying that the Magical Musketeer cards are broken. They are. Magical Musketeer, Starfire, Casper, and Max are ridiculously busted cards. But playing the other ones makes the deck a lot more fair. I'm gonna put it in It Takes a Really Good Pilot, though I do think it's also a strong deck. Musket is really good at board breaking. You are correct, but so is Unchained. Like, it's almost like in GB Smokey, you look at your Magical Musketeer deck, you play Unchained cards because you understand that the Unchained cards are great at board breaking too. So like when you combine Magical Musketeer with Fiendsmith and Unchained with a balanced formula and less Magical Musketeers, I personally think you have a better version than more Magical Musketeers, less Unchained, and the same amount of Fiendsmith. That's my opinion. But of course, I can't wait to see your Magical Musketeer replays because I am a Magical Musketeer stan, so I want to see them. Heroes, This deck's not really that good, right? To be honest, I would probably say 4th-rate Duelist because of everybody playing Droll. I think Droll is one of the best hand traps that you can play in the game, right? It's, yeah. Yeah, like Earl's right. Turn 1 with Magical Musketeers, you kind of just go Fiendsmith combo. But turn 1 with Magical Musketeer, Unchained, Fiendsmith, you go full Unchained, Fiendsmith combo, and then Magical Musketeers aid you during that. Cali's a hater? Bro, tell me one thing that hero does that another deck doesn't do better. You think that heroes are a solid option? Tell me one thing that hero does that the other decks don't. If you're talking about OTK, Tenpai Dragon is better. It's just flat out better. If you're talking about Darklaw, Chimera is better. What are we talking about? If you're talking about losing the nib, Chimera is actually better at losing the nib. Right? Macro, it's almost like they didn't ban a Rice Heart. Right? Because a Rice Heart is better than Darklaw. Like I'm saying, I think me and Earl we could really, actually, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put it there. Like, this deck is, no, I can't respectfully put it there. This deck is so hard to play. It's almost not worth it. Especially since you're playing into formats where Droll, Maxi, Charmies, and all these other cards are existing. This deck is in a really, really tough spot. And people were playing Nibs. Bro, come on now. Come on now. You guys are doing tricks on it if you think that heroes are a solid option deck. Loses to like every hand trap in the game. It doesn't allow much non-engine. Thank you, Earl. Thank you. Now, I would say that Mathmech takes a really good pilot. I would actually probably put it close enough to steal W's. But the big problem with Mathmech is that players are back into playing Bestials and Droll. And that would hurt Mathmech. I think it's not necessarily that Mathmech's bad. It's just like what you're playing into right now. Right? So that's pretty much it. I would also say the same thing about Orcus. Same thing. These decks in that takes a really good pilot are not bad by any stretch of the imagination, right? But it's going to require more mental brain from you than it would be than some of these other decks which have unfair cards. Some of these decks which consistently make those unfair cards. In this deck, which is just a walking unfairness, right? That's why it's crazy. Centurion, I think Centurion's good enough to steal W's. The best thing about Centurion is that we don't have all of the support just yet. And the deck is solid with engines. I also think the same thing for Pearly as well as Rescue Ace. And I'm going to have to start putting strategies in the beginning because it's going to start getting moved off. I think that these decks are strong enough to win games when they get their combo rolling. Sometimes it's just getting their combo rolling. Like summoning the Big Cat against almost any deck in Master Duel is pretty much a W. Just like resolving Rescue Ace Turbulence. Pretty much a W. It's just getting that to resolve, right? Mathmech should steal W's. In a Bestial format, I wouldn't tell you guys to play that. I think Fire Kings takes a really good pilot. Some good things about Fire King is that you don't have to worry about Charmies and Droll and all that other stuff. But the bad thing about Fire King is just about everything else. Like the deck, holy crap, the deck can brick. The deck does require a really, really good pilot to play. And I'm just being honest, right? In all honesty, I would tell you that this is here. I'm not even going to cap chat. Would you be down to duel with me on Valorant? You know what? I like that you're here. I've never played Valorant a day in my life. Rika, nah, it's definitely tier 1 or higher. You guys think so? I am an official Rika hater, okay? I hate the timer. I hate that it loses to Charmies. I hate everything about it. But I also understand that I'm not, like, it's unfair to put it into 4th-rate duelists, right? I try to keep myself as unbiased as possible, and I think that I'm unbiased unless it comes to plants. Rika tier 0, Rika Cancerous. I would personally tell you not to play this deck because it's incredibly hard to play, right? But if you know how to play the deck, I would actually say that it is good enough to steal W's. I'm not gonna lie. It's actually good enough to win those games for you. Same thing with tier limit. I'm just gonna put tier limit in really good pilot. I don't think tier limits are bad. I think that tier limit, like for the same thing, Mathmech, with Mathmech's Bestials are really good right now. and Plants instantly losing the Droll. Yeah, nah, we got to put that down here. You're right. You're right. Plants lose the Droll, the Charmies, Maxi. Like, you lose just so many things here. Definitely down there. You guys knocked me back into my senses with that one, right? But yeah, these decks kind of struggle in the cards that are being played right now. I would say the same thing with Voiceless Voice, and holy, the takes a really good pilot is crazy. It's ridiculously long. We probably should have said a different thing and takes a good pilot at the bottom, because I don't think that any one of these decks and takes a good pilot is bad. They just are a victim of circumstance. Let's also fill up that 4th-rate duelist, right? So this is definitely a 4th-rate duelist. Sword Soul, definitely a 4th-rate duelist. Madolche, definitely a 4th-rate duelist. I understand that Madolche got new support that makes the Madolche good, which is 7th Tachyon. Still not good enough. I don't care what you guys say. Still not good enough. It's not enough, all right? More consistent, still Madolche. Still losing to the exact same hand traps, right? And I know there's going to be some Madolche, guy. But my Madolche, look, man, I'm not saying that you can't play it. I'm just saying that it's not a great deck. I think White Forest is one of the best decks in the game. To be honest, I think White Forest will probably be here, but I'm gonna settle myself down. It's definitely one of the strongest decks in the entire game. It's really, really good. You think it's Masters level without a question? I think it's solid option. I think that it's really, really good. It does have more support. I think you guys don't have all of the support for White Forest. I know you have the new Azamina White Forest card, but I want to say you guys are missing a couple of cards. But I would put it as a really solid option. Earl says that it's better it's Masters good. It's a counter to Tenpai. I think we could probably put it here. Like Blue Eyes, probably the best solid option, and then Blue Eyes would be right after, right? Tachyon Dragon, he might not agree with me. I think that this deck is a secret Tenpai Dragon deck. I think that this is one of the secret Tenpai Dragon decks that people are not paying attention to. The deck is crazy. The deck is good. Really, 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 really good. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I think the deck is crazy strong. Maybe good enough to steal W's, but I'm hyping it up, so I'm going to put it in a solid choice. Actually, it's actually good enough to steal W's, but I'm going to hype it up, all right? Yubel, I still think is the best deck. If you were to ask me what are the best decks in Master Duel, I think Tenpai hands down is the best deck in the game. I think that Yubel would be the second. I think that Snake Eyes is a third, but all three of these have toxic components to it that makes them ridiculous. And Dragons, I think that the deck is good enough to steal W's. Again, I like that GB argues that White Forest is tier 1 Masters level. Swap Yubel would not. No, I can't do that, big dog. Yubel's ridiculous, dog. I could see this being here, right? I could see this being here, but there's no way. There's no way that this is down here. This deck is still insane, right? But yeah, I think that this is kind of like right here. It's borderline teetering, and Tenpai is just really, really dumb. It's just bad. Yubel can't go second. Legit zero reason to play it over Snakes. Well, there's Aerial Eater that makes the deck kind of stupid. And then there's other cards. I really like Yubel into going second, mainly because the boards are not as bad to go against as it were in the TCG. But this deck is crazy. Remember, Yubel is nerfed. If I remember correctly, you still got 2 Phantom, right? You do still have Beatrice. Why do you guys still have Beatrice? That's kind of crazy. Having Beatrice does make it. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it. I know there's obviously some room for you guys to argue, and I can't wait to see what you guys have to say about this tier list. Let me know what you guys think down below. What do you think about these particular decks? I think for the most part, we can all agree for stuff on chat. Me and our Earl GB and I will definitely have some conversations about White Forest and Yubel. I think that's the only thing that he and him will disagree on. But yeah, everything else seems pretty kosher, right, Earl? We'll argue and watch how the Master Duel format evolves from there, and maybe one of us will change our mind. It'll be really interesting to see. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and of course, I will catch you on the next one.